first of all, thank you everybody for joining. We're delighted to kick off our webinar focused on Author Aide and how to get the full potential of AI-assisted authoring. First of all, just quickly, some housekeeping. So on joining, everyone's automatically muted, cameras off, that kind of thing. Questions can be asked in the GoToWebinar questions pane. You'll see that in the top right of the GoToWebinar UI. Will be answered. You can submit those at any stage during the conversation, during the presentation, and questions will be answered. We'll be answering them during the Q&A segment at the end of the webinar. Any specific follow-up at all that you need can be sent through to team@learnosity.com, and we'll make sure we get the right follow-up there. And this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be emailed to all registrants after the webinar. So first off, just to introduce ourselves, so I'll introduce first of all Gavin Cooney, who is our founder and CEO at Learnosity, and myself, Neil McGough. I'm Chief Product Officer here at Learnosity. So firstly, we'll just kick off a quick poll just so we can get a bit of a sense check of the room and get an idea of people's levels of experience with AI. So Sean on our marketing team is going to kick that off. You should see it all pop up in your GoToWebinar UI there. So newbie, never used any tools before. Novice, you've played with AI tools like ChatGPT, etc. Proficient, you're getting really stuck in. You've got some prompt engineering skills. And expert, you've been using AI since before it was cool. This is all old hat to you at this stage. You could be doing this webinar in our place. So, yeah, we'll give a moment for people to put in their responses there.
It's interesting to see the number of people who are becoming experts since it all became cool. It's great to see you all.
Yeah, it's interesting. You would think, kind of a year and a half ago, there would have been a heavy amount of people in the newbie area at this stage. Now there's a solid contingent in the middle of people playing with tools and picking up prompt engineering skills and really getting into it. So that's fantastic to see. Great. So we'll close that now. And okay, so just an overview of what we'll run through today. So first off, Gav's going to bring you through Learnosity's mission and vision and how AI plays an integral part of that. I'll recap on Author Aide, what it is and what it aims to do for those of you who are seeing it for the first time. I'll run through a demonstration of Author Aide, talking through best practices and approaches to getting the most out of Author Aide. And then Gavin and I will run you through the Author Aide roadmap, and we'll give you a little sneak preview of some stuff that's coming in the wider in Learnosity's wider AI plans there as well. And we'll open up the table for questions at that stage. So with that, I'll hand it over to Gav to bring you through the mission and vision piece.
Thanks, Neil. Look, I bring everybody through the manifesto nearly every time I talk about the company. I think it's important. What we do here is important work. And one thing I've found in the education industry is nearly every single time I'm speaking to somebody, they're doing it for the same reason as I'm doing it, and because the same reason that people in Learnosity are doing it. And that's because we care about education and we're trying to improve it. So fundamentally, Learnosity is founded on a series of values. We do believe that education is a human right. We believe that it should be equitable and inclusive and accessible to all. And our role in that is to try to advance it by providing best-in-class technology to the industry and helping them kind of rise with the tide of the innovation within Learnosity. We're here at a great time in our history, in the history of Learnosity, in terms of AI kind of taking off, and it's just such a great opportunity to provide that best-in-class technology to more and more people. We're one company. We have a number of products in a number of industries, and Learnosity. Now, internally, we always talk. We have this slide, the next slide, about where we show this kind of cliched billboard in Times Square. So if we were paying for a billboard, what would it say? So it would say Learnosity wastes money on marketing by putting up billboards in Times Square. But apart from that, it would say Learnosity is the leader in AI for assessment. That's where we're trying to be. That's what we talk about internally all the time now. And that's what we're talking about to the world. And we're kicking off here today. We're going to talk about some of the AI stuff we're working on. Our goal is simple. It's to improve education. It's to provide the best in class technology. And in the same way as you might have chosen us to have us as the engine behind assessment, content, and delivery, we want to be that obvious choice to have us help you with AI. We have the expertise in that space. We have the ability to integrate technology and so on. And every product now is just going to be a wrapper on top of a large language model. In the same way as before, every tech product was just a wrapper on top of Amazon Web Services. Nobody needed to go out and build a multiple choice question before, and then they're not going to need to go out and have to build directly on top of an LLM. So we have some ideas on that, and we have a kind of AI vision. So today we're going to outline Author Aide, what we're doing with that now and what we will be doing with it. And we're going to show you some of the future of what we're going to be doing with AI outside of authoring. That includes for teachers, for students, and for administrators. Neil, back to you.
Great. So with that in mind, let's talk through Author Aide and just level set. There, some of the audience, kind of looking at the attendee list and that kind of thing. There's a healthy contingent of existing Learnosity customers who will have seen a lot of this, and there's also a significant chunk of people who are new to Author Aide. So Author Aide is our generative AI powered content creator, right? We view it as the ultimate productivity multiplier for assessment authors. Author Aide enables you to create content from simple topic or question stem, and it generates high quality stems, correct answers, distractors, feedback. It allows you to use and bring to the table standards or your own curriculum outlines or learning material to create content that is not just of a high quality, but it is standard and curriculum aligned as you need it to be. So today we're going to show you how to use Author Aide and how to get the highest quality content out of it. So with that said, let me jump out of our slide deck here and into Author Aide and kind of work through that. So for those of you who are current Learnosity customers, you'll obviously know this interface well. I'm sure some of you have been playing around with the free usage that we provide with Author Aide to get accustomed to the tool. For those of you who haven't seen this before, we launch into Author Aide through this area up here, and it brings us into our creation interface. So I'm going to start off by creating a multiple choice question, and we're just going to start off with something open or general knowledge. Great to get a handle on how Author Aide creates content and talk through some of the kind of the tips and tricks in terms of how to create that or how to prompt it correctly. So I always look for a new topic every time I'm demoing this, because that way I get to learn something new. So yesterday was 53 years since Nixon visited China, and the first U.S. state visit China. So let's ask it about that. So we're going to turn around and we're going to say Richard Nixon's state visit China and its effects on the global geopolitical landscape. And I managed to spell everything correctly there, which is always good for a webinar. So I'm not going to go into any specific options here. I'm just going to hit generate question. So while that's generating, let's talk through some of the tips there. In this case, finding the key focus of the question I want to create and being really precise and concise in the topic that I give it gives the best results, right? In this scenario, we've drilled into the who, the what, and we've gone very specific that we don't just want to question generally about Richard Nixon and his tenure, we don't want to question specifically about Nixon and his visit. We want to know about the wider implications of that visit here. So we get a really high quality question out of that. What's the major impact of Nixon's 72-state visit to China on the global geopolitical landscape? We can say paved the way for formal US-China relations, shifted the balance of power during the Cold War, high quality feedback within that as well, right? So that's a great point.
So the idea of having feedback, which wasn't really going to be possible for a regular author to do before, that's already added in for every single incorrect and correct answer.
Yeah, and one of the things we've heard repeatedly from our customer base is, getting formative feedback built well and consistently and to a high quality is just a painful exercise that tends to not materialize properly. So it's a real pain point that we felt we could solve with this. Well, let's move on from there. As in most cases here, we're not looking just purely for general knowledge content. We're looking for content aligned in some manner, right? So let's first of all look at kind of a K-12 example, standards alignment. So we're going to go through two examples here. One K-12 focused, one non-K-12 more in the certification space, right? So let me go and have a look first at my K-12 standards. So I'm going to pull up my PDF of the Sunshine State standards. So Florida's social studies standards here. I'm going to look for a uh, particular standards code here. So we're going to ask a question relating to opportunity cost. So we've got this very specific standard about explaining it. We're going to take that and we're going to go back and we're going to start a new question here. So new multiple choice. I have a topic in mind. We'll go pretty broad on this actually because we can go broader with the topic if we're bringing a learning objective or standard to the table to really narrow it down. So let's say, does your question need to assess a learning objective or standard? Yep, absolutely. We're going to bring that in. We're going to put it in there. We're also going to make use of some of the drop downs here. So I'm going to say level of Bloom's taxonomy. We're going to push up probably the complexity of the question, the way the question's asked in this case. We're going to kick that off and generate that question. And again, while that's generating, one key design principle that we've gone with here, which I want to talk through because it really drives how to get the most out of the experience of creating content with Author Aide. Our goal in how we design this is really to keep the content creator centered in the overall experience. So once Author Aide generates a question, the content creator has all the tools they need at their fingertips to take that and get it through to the stage that they want it to be, right? They can turn around and on the left-hand side, they can edit, they can change, reorder elements within it. They can manually change drafts within that. On the right-hand side, they can go back and start again or kind of tweak some of the original parameters or in a really natural way, reprompt Author Aide to generate that question again, which I'll show you more in the next example here. But here we go. So John has 20 bucks and at a fair he decided to buy a book instead of buying snacks and games. What's his opportunity cost, right? So, maybe if I misunderstand the concept, I might say no opportunity cost because he bought what he wanted. But this is a great example of using, a defined state standard to drive a very broad topic towards a very concise question within that. So let's now just take a look at that in a non K-12 kind of more certification kind of style experience. So this is a probably a lesser known on the in an LLM's data set piece of information, right? This is a FINRA general securities representative qualification exam. It's something anybody who's selling a security needs to take and pass to be allowed to do that. And so we're going to take some of this, and this is their whole kind of course and curriculum outline, and we're going to go and take we'll take something from function 2 here, right? So I'm going to go and say, right, I'm going to use that as my topic because I'm going to try and just reproduce or produce a quality question with as little new information as I have, and I'm going to take the knowledge of section. And the same way I used for a state standard, which kind of very, kind of single 1 or 2 line piece, I'm going to use that as the learning objective or standard I need here. So I'm coming from that curriculum outline piece and I'm using it to very, very quickly generate content. Again, I'll bump up the Bloom's taxonomy for this type of content, and I'll hit generate question. And within that, what we're going to do as well within this is take a look at the type of question that it generates and see what we can use in that natural reprompting structure to change the structure of the question, right? Really handy for being able to, to pivot the stem of a question, to pivot the approach of a question, and change and tweak it a little bit. So let's see what we get out first, and then we can decide the best way we want to do that. So I've got my I've got my Series 7 exam question. Talks through a high net worth individual, inheritance and wanting to invest, which type of account works for this best. But say I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is a bit of a rote learning question, right? I'm really looking for somebody just to regurgitate the page that this came from. Actually, I want to turn around and I say, recraft this as a scenario question from the point of view of the professional advisor to the customer. And we're going to say that professional advisor's name is Gavin. Just to, so let's go and hit regenerate at that stage. And what this allows us to do in a way that the more structured initial options of Author Aide kind of is a bit more tightly constrained is this lets you set the tone of the question. It lets you kind of tweak and kind of interact in that kind of more personal way within it. So we'll see now when this gets generated, rather than just being a generic kind of rote learning question, we're now presenting somebody with a scenario focused around these concepts. Here we go. So now, as a professional advisor, Gavin's asked by a high net worth individual who recently received inheritance. They want advice on where to invest that. What type of account should Gavin suggest? So we've repositioned that question to a much more natural scenario based concept. So I think key thing there with those two examples, we see that bringing quality context to this really creates quality content, right? Being able, the more you can provide in terms of, and especially material that you already have that exists, and especially with the fact that, you know, in the vast majority of places, nobody's creating assessment just purely out of thin air. They're creating it aligned to existing source material. The better the types of questions you can get out of it. So let's take that to the next level and look at how we bring source material into this. In this case, we'll take a look at that same K-12 example we had. I'm going to take my financial literacy topic. I'm going to take my learning objective to go in here. Here we go. But I'm also going to add something new into at this stage. I'm going to turn around and take an article from the internet as an example. So here I have an article from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis explaining real life examples of opportunity cost. So let me go and take a chunk of that and I'm going to drop it in. I'm going to turn around and say, do I have my own source material? Yes. I'm going to drop it in. And at this stage, again, I'm going to bump up the complexity a little bit there and I'm going to hit generate question. And one thing, again, as we work through this, that's worth calling out, practice really makes perfect with this, right? The best way ultimately to get the most out of Author Aide is to use it, to play with it, play with the options, the flows, the starting topics, get an idea of what makes the biggest impact. So in this case, we now got our generated example, having used the passage for it, so it relates to content that was in the passage and gives that, you know, and has created a question that's aligned to that passage. So now you have not just standards aligned content, but curriculum aligned content at that stage. But now let's look at another non K-12 example of this. We're going to look at something we really ultimately don't going to get wrong here. It's the idea that we really need to make sure that the content that gets created is aligned to the source material. So a great example of this is anything operational, health and safety related, right? So, you know, forklifts, pallet trucks, cranes, anything like that, and safe operation. It's not something you just want somebody to Google, create a question based on what they find in Google and hope that's the right training material. You're going to want to come to that with kind of real content. So in this case, I have an operator's manual for a pallet truck. And I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to get to a section focused on daily safety checks, right? So I'm going to go and take that. Let's copy all that text. Let's drop it in here. Yes, that's my source material. And my question is going to be on daily safety checks for a Crown 3600 pallet truck. And we're going to go again, just bump up the complexity a little bit, hit generate question. You know, and I think like as we'll show the example now in a second, but I think there's one key piece here, which is the huge value, especially in the corporate training or certification world, professional certification world, for using this type of content with Author Aide is that it can really reduce and remove bottlenecks for SMEs and subject matter experts that are outside the content creation flow, right? So your SME is not necessarily a content creator in this case. They are time poor. They have about 5 other different jobs in the organization. and you really, and it becomes a huge bottleneck in that scenario. By using source material in this way, you can really quickly remove the bottleneck for that and move them from, they've already been involved in the creation of the source material. You now can use them just as a reviewer at the end of this experience rather than crafting questions throughout it. So that removal of that bottleneck is really priceless. And you can see here, really high quality question focused on the guidelines that are given in this document. Do we need to test the horn during the safety check? Uh, that no, it does say you have to do that. It does say you have to do wheels are in good condition, all those kind of things, right? So again, kind of recapping on that a little bit, being able to turn around and make sure as you bring a topic into this that you're being that what you're gonna where you want to end up with the content, with the topic what you're asking. You've drilled down and you're not just asking completely general topic. If you wanted to steer towards a geopolitics question, ask it about the geopolitical landscape. If you want it to be standards and curriculum aligned and you want it to really narrow it in, and ultimately not just to ask a question about sharks, but ask a question about what your course taught people about sharks. Being able to use those elements in when you're creating content will absolutely zero you in on where you want to be and the type of content you want to create really effectively. So that's a bit of a crash course on some of the tips and tricks with that. With that, I'll hand it back over to Gav to talk you through the future of Author Aide.
Brilliant. Thanks, Neil. Yes, look, we're really super proud of the work we've done here. We've delivered something really great in terms of Author Aide. We got to market really early and quickly with that, but we did that deliberately with a minimum viable product and with the intention to iterate quite quickly and to work with our customers to work out what they need next and what to do next. So we're now going to talk a little bit about what we're going to release next, both in Author Aide and kind of outside. So I'm going to show some of those focus areas. So there's loads to do, right? So we want to do more question types. It's obvious we need to do that. We're the kind of question types company. We've always been that, and we kind of launch with 2 or 3 question types deliberately, and we're going to go on from there. There's a few things like mathematics and getting into a bunch of math questions. A bunch of our customers are doing math questions. How can we do that? How can we make math generation easier? How can we do different question types from there? Doing essays. If we're going to be doing essay scoring, which spoiler alert, we will be doing, we'll talk about that in a while. We're going to need to do essay generation and rubric generation. A lot of our customers do things like having a passage on the left and like 5 questions on the right. So that kind of dynamic, maybe being able to build those types of questions or items rather, with a passage and a number of questions connected to it. That's certainly on the roadmap. Creating variants from existing questions. You already seen in the iteration process there, as we authored questions, how we take a question that's been recently generated by AI and go, okay, give me that again, except for give me a female example, or give me a different example for an opportunity cost or something like that. Now, take just an pre-existing, pre-authored question that was authored years ago and maybe be able to duplicate that and create slightly different versions of that as well. That's part of it. Being able to tag content that's being created to a set structure around kind of curriculum standards and so on, and then being able to kind of content upskill. So take a long pre-existing, say, multiple choice questions and generate those distractor analysis, that distractor feedback that we gave before, being able to do that for pre-existing content as well. So there's a lot of work there coming through around Author Aide. There's 3 things we're going to focus on today on top of that we're going to kind of give you examples. There's like Author Aide available as an API, being able to bring your own source material kind of en masse, more than we talked about before, and batch content creation. So back over to Neil, who's going to bring you through those 3 things.
Sure, so thanks, Gavin. So first of all, as Gavin mentioned, we're Learnosity, and we're an API centric company in terms of how we approach things. we originally launched Author Aide as a in its MVP stage in our author site, which gave us a great way to be able to get Author Aide out early and into people's hands. Now we want to shift focus and package that up as an API, and that really gives us opens us up to two new use cases in that space. So first of all, Author Aid is an API. For those of you who've built your own internal content management systems for your in-house or contract authors to use, that means you can embed Author Aid in the same way you embed the Author API right now. It means you can drop that experience onto a page and be able to get that AI powered content flow in your product where you in your internal tool where you want it, and be able to get that massive productivity boost for your teams. Secondly, within that, for those of you who currently provide teacher or instructor created content or a place for your end users to be able to create their own content, not just the content you provide as part of your platform. Author Aid as an API allows you to use us to bring AI magic into your platform, and we can really help and be part of a growth engine and growth strategy for your platform in that respect, right? Through providing incredible AI assisted authoring to your customer base. Um, so that provide those two routes allow us for all of our customers to provide Author Aid in our hosted tool for host authoring tool for those who need to use it. For those who want to invest it in their own internal platforms, means we can power that. And for those of you who want to empower your end users to be able to create their own content, this provides that way as well. Ingesting your own or your source material behind the scenes. So bringing your own source material takes all of the friction out of creating curriculum assigned content. You would have seen me going through an Author Aid and identifying a chunk of content in a PDF that was relevant for the type of content that I needed to create, copying, pasting it, and that's great and provides the context we need. But by kind of going down this road and by sorry, that really probably means somebody has to know the PDF, know the subject area, know where the content is, find it, copy it, all for generating. With Bring Your Own Source Material, we'll be able to ingest content PDFs up front for you. We'll be able then behind the scenes at generation time, when you turn around and say you want content generated on a certain topic with a pre-existing resource as the source on that, we can break that material down, find the key passages to the topic you've suggested, the most relevant areas, and use those as context, all with no effort on the part of the content author. It just becomes a case of choosing the PDF or the training material or the course or the chapter that's relevant, and using that as the source for it. And finally, large scale batch creation of content. So batch creation of content allows us to move from to what is frankly an incredible tenfold increase in productivity for authors to a completely different level. With this ability combined with Bring Your Own Source Material, you can bring a PDF of a chapter or a book, let us ingest it, and then task us to create 10 questions on topic one, 50 questions on topic two, whatever, and potentially hundreds of questions in that space, breaking it down to batches, aligned to standards, set up that blueprint for content creation, and set us off to create it all with the push of a button. The productivity improvement we can foresee with this is astronomical in our customers' hands.
It's brilliant. I'm really excited to see some of that coming through, and I've seen a lot of the work in the background, and it's going to be as good as it looks there. So look, we've brought you through Author Aid and what we're doing there, and we're super excited about that. But I now want to give you a bit of a sneak preview of where we're going outside of authoring, and that's bringing AI to the kind of wider assessment journey. That's the students, to teachers, to administrators, and so on. We were going to do a whole section on this, but we were kind of going to run out of time on it, so we're going to do a whole separate webinar. So let's go through some of these things. So firstly, scoring and grading. Essay scoring is famously difficult and hard for teachers in terms of their life and trying to score essays. We can make this a lot easier with AI. What we're doing here is you're going off to an AI, and then you're letting the teacher override whatever they want. So they're picking a grade, and then the teacher can override it if they want, and they can edit the feedback to the teacher, to the student as well. And this is in the works, and it'll be out very soon. We're looking at if you have a bunch of essay scoring happening, please reach out. Next, we're going to have a look at math. We're bringing out multi-step math questions. It's one of our most requested features over the years, and AI gives it a bit of a new lease in life in terms of being able to generate feedback and make the authoring really, really easy there. A few things around that. One of the problems with it, of course, is authoring complex math formulas. But now being able to just kind of write out the formula, hold it up to a camera, you're able to really shortcut some of those complex math things. Might be hard to use a webcam, so the other thing is a QR code on the screen. You bring up your phone, and then you use your phone as the camera to take a picture of your of whatever you've written on paper, and it goes and it generates that. It also does. It will go and do multiple steps. You write down your formula, 6 lines of a solution. Take a picture of the whole thing, and it recognizes each one and puts it in as if you typed them in a multi-step math problem, and then we can give the feedback straight away. This works, of course, if you had an iPad, but not every student is going to have $1,000 iPad with an Apple Pencil or whatever. But here's a nice example of an 8-step math problem. You've written it all out, and instantly gets kind of recognized, and then you can give the feedback to the student. Every question that exists in the item bank already or has been authored along the way, we can add a worked solution to it, an AI generated worked solution. So every question fundamentally should become a learning opportunity, and that's math and everywhere else. So adding worked solutions to all these math problems via AI. So here's just an example, and it's a real life example we've already built. It was a simultaneous equation. So all the author did was write out the question, and the AI went and created the correct answer and created a whole worked solution in there. Now we can do that both for existing questions and also like for questions as you author them, but also the millions of existing questions are out there. There's about 330 million questions in our item bank, and the idea is to be able to go back over those and add in kind of worked solutions and that kind of thing. That includes doing stuff like more complex work solutions. Like this is example of a nice big work solution and drawing a parabola, drawing a graph, that kind of thing. That can all be AI generated for human eyeball to and to decide whether it gets added to the question or not. It can all be AI generated massively on the fly. Moving on from there, we think that there's a bunch of conversations happening about since GPT came along about like essays dying and plagiarism, that kind of stuff. We don't believe that's going to happen overnight. In fact, we're kind of doubling down on essays as you've seen around scoring. However, there are some problems with it. What we can do, we think AI is going to be very useful in doing, is a different type of question. And the idea is, have you ever tried to ask a teenager how their day was? Well, you have to ask them a series of questions to drag the information out of them. So the idea is giving a student a chat type question that the chatbot asks them a series of questions to draw the level of information that you want out of them before you let them move on. So if they write a whole essay straight away, great, they can move on. Or the chatbot has to ask them a series of 10 questions to get them get the information it needs. Image accessibility. We want to kind of improve the authoring experience, and we want to add kind of little moments of wonder to the experiences that go along. Here's an example. You upload an image and it generates the alt text for that. Accessibility is obviously a big passion here in Learnosity, a big part of what we're doing. And being able to do that is just one little nice thing to be able to do. Also being able to go back and look at all the millions of items that already exist and add accessible alt text to all those images as well. Auto add that could be really, really important as well. And one thing that's quite important near to my heart is diversity, equity, and inclusion. For every question that's authored, we want to be able to, and we are doing, is going back to a long set of diversity, equity, and inclusion guidelines and checking the question against that. So you ask some question that's biased in some way. Oh, a nurse has to put in a saline drip. How should she start? Well, that's a biased question. Why are we assuming the nurse is a female for a start? So the idea is that the DEI checker goes off and puts that in and flags that to the user. So that's at authoring time being able to do that, but also again going back and looking at a whole item bank, looking at diversity across the whole thing, and also looking at inclusion. So is a representation of different things in there? Do we have 100,000 questions in there, but they're all male examples with English names? That's a problem. Being able to identify that across an item bank is a big thing. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking at. We are doing a webinar on this in 5 weeks from today, called Little Moments of Wonder, AI-led assessment experiences. And again, Neil and I will be doing that. I'll be bringing through live demos of each of those things we just showed you, and talking about a little bit more that we're doing in the AI space for assessment. So with that, we'll take your questions. Yeah, I see some question there about is my data used to train any of the models?
Yeah, so let's talk through the approach we've taken with that an architectural point of view. So just to start off, all of Learnosity's customers, kind of across the broad spectrum, are enterprise businesses. We build product to cater for enterprise needs, and that means building it for we know we need to build an AI solution that is secure and scalable, and where we can be very clear about what we store and what we use. So to start off, this solution and Author Aide currently uses Azure OpenAI. We specifically started using Azure OpenAI for the level of contractual commitment and controls that it provides within the platform, and also because in general we found some early emergence of contracting issues where companies were uncomfortable with products running directly against OpenAI's APIs, because the trust factor that comes into that in terms of use for that. Microsoft and obviously Learnosity, we explicitly do not use any information for any of the information provided for training models within that. Any information that you provide, either like for instance in terms of topics, source materials, and those kind of things, are used in a transient nature at generation time and at generation time only. In the scenario as we move towards bring your own source material, our internal structures and our data storage for that will be aligned with our item bank, right? So it'll be separated and logically stored separate in the same manner that all of your item bank content would be to date. And our aim is not only to make a great AI product, AI powered experience from this, it's also to make a high quality product that can actually be contracted and used in the wild, and we understand the complexities that go with that.
Brilliant. Another one here is what's behind this GPT 3 or 4 or what? I can take some of that. So we're obviously using some of the OpenAI stuff, the GPT stuff you will have heard of, the same stuff that's behind ChatGPT. We're working with Microsoft on this for reasons. Some of those reasons are Neil outlined just now, in terms of not training a larger LLM and that kind of thing. Kind of more those enterprise type features. But as we look at other things, we're after showing you a bunch of things there: scanning of handwriting, processing of math, grading of essays, that kind of stuff. We won't be using GPT for all of that, and certainly won't be using GPT indefinitely for all of that. What we're doing is we're trying to pick the right tools for the right task, for this same thing, for a particular task. So you can use us for that. We'll kind of obfuscate that for you and be able to change the underlying large learning model as appropriate. When we find a better tool that does mathematics better, we will go ahead and use that, for example. If you use your own source materials, how's the tool storing them? Or are you using those materials to train? Okay, we've answered that already. Can you set a grade level stroke age range as well as complexity level? Neil?
Yeah, I can take that. So yes, absolutely. So in the demo I just showed you, we have set up as kind of a broadly generic demo to kind of cater for everything from K-12 to higher ed to corporate L&D to certification, et cetera, et cetera. We do, though, have extra options we can add into that. So, for instance, being able to have a drop down that fits, that is just simply grade level within that, along with some additional exemplar content that goes with that to try and get the nuance of the differences between grade levels there. We've got small hooks and like little areas there where we can customize it to the use case, kind of broadly depending on the market.
Brilliant. And the last question, I think, I'd like to know how copyright and permissions work with items authored within Author Aide.
Yeah, so I mean the key thing here, and the one thing we to be very explicit on. So both Learnosity and our processors in this make absolutely no claim to any copyright of any or IP on anything that's provided to us or anything that's generated by us. In fact, explicitly, I think in our Author Aide kind of addendum contract piece, we explicitly state we assign those rights to you as much as is possible within a jurisdiction. I'll note that last little piece. It's obviously a complex and moving space, right? In terms of in different jurisdictions, how AI generated content and AI generated content that's been interacted with by a human author and that kind of thing is viewed in that area. And obviously, we have no direct control to be able to change that big picture. What we can do is make sure we add the clarity that we don't make any claim with it, and we assign rights as much as is legally possible by us.
Brilliant. I think there's a few more questions in there. We will get back to people one-to-one on stuff we didn't get to deal with now, but I think we could be here all day. We've got a lot of people here. It's great to have everybody. So that webinar is in 5 weeks' time. If anyone wants to sign up for that, Wednesday the 27th of March at 10 a.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Irish time. And anything you'd like to know more about, please reach out directly to Neil or I or to team@learnosity.com. Any follow-up, let us know. Thanks very much for taking the time today to listen to us talk about AI, and looking forward to seeing you at the next session.
Thank you, everybody.